Plainville, Massachusetts. And first, I wanted to thank Barnes & Noble for hosting me. This is really awesome. I'm so glad that you put this together and connected me with some of my Barnes & Noble readers. Also, I wanted to plug Barnes & Noble for a minute. I've been going to Barnes & Noble stores ever since I was a kid, and I still do almost all of my Christmas shopping at Barnes & Noble stores to this day. It really is a one-stop shop for me. They've got books, comics, games, toys, and lots of special books for everyone. I always walk out of there like 2 days before Christmas with armfuls of gifts for my family members. So think about that when you're doing your Christmas shopping this year. Now, we're just 3 days away from the launch of The Deep End, which comes out on Tuesday. And The Deep End is really a different kind of Wimpy Kid book. I started writing it during the beginning of quarantine, and I couldn't work from home because my kids were home. They're doing remote learning, which they're actually still doing now 3 days a week. So I needed to find a place to work. So every day I would drive my car to the cemetery and I worked there every day. I had like a blanket and some junk food and I would just get to work. While I was working on this book, I knew I was going to have to acknowledge the situation that we're living through right now, COVID-19 and quarantine. But I also knew that by the time my book came out, people might be really sick of talking about quarantine life and the pandemic. So I was like, what should I do? Because I feel like I kind of had to acknowledge what we're all going through across the world, but I also didn't want to write a book that wasn't very funny. I also really like for the Wimpy Kid books to be timeless. I like them not to feel like they were set in any particular era. So I tried to thread the needle with this book. So I start the book off in quarantine, sort of, but it's not because of the pandemic. If you remember from the last book, Wrecking Ball, the Heffleys have kind of a disaster that happens to their house at the end of the book. And so I thought it would be fun to start off the new book at grandma's with the family living in grandma's basement because they need a place to live. Where do they go? They go to grandma's basement. But grandma doesn't really want them to be there. She doesn't want her grown daughter and their family to be there. So she's got a life of her own. She's got friends. And she really doesn't want her friends knowing that the Heffleys are in the basement. So I get to do lots of quarantine jokes because the family's all boxed in together. They're feeling cut off from the world. They're playing lots of board games. Everybody has to be quiet all day long because dad is working remotely. So I think that kids will recognize their current situation in the Heffley situation. And on the first page, I don't know if I can remember every line of the first page, but it starts off by saying something like, I love my family and all, but I don't need to be with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Greg says that the family's about to go off the deep end. And Greg's mother says that what the family really needs is a vacation. And Greg says what they really need is a vacation from each other. I'm sure we can all kind of relate to that right now. So I think kids will read the first page and think it's about COVID-19. That's the trick I'm trying to pull. And then I switch things up and we realize they're in this situation because they're stuck there because of the home renovations. And that they get to escape. The other half of this whole quarantine life that we're living through is that we have these escape fantasies. Some of us have gotten away. Some of us haven't been so lucky. My family didn't get anywhere really this summer. We got away for a few days, but we didn't get to escape like the Heffleys do. So the Heffleys actually get Uncle Gary's old RV and go on a road trip. And before you start saying in the comment section that this is just like the long haul, I promise you this really is a different story. This is a camping story. It's all about the not so great outdoors. Anyone who's ever been on a camping trip with their family knows exactly what I'm talking about. So the family camps in the woods, they tell ghost stories, and they have close encounters with wildlife as every camping trip should feature. They go tubing on a river, and Greg actually gets into a really sticky situation. A lot of the stories in my series were inspired by real life events, and the story of Greg on the river is no exception. So here's what happens to Greg, and here's what happened to me in real life. In the book, Greg is floating down the river. Things are going fine. He gets into a fast part of the river where it's a little rough, and he gets tossed out of his inner tube. And then Greg actually grabs a branch, and he's kind of holding on as the water is about to pull his bathing suit off. So What happened to me in real life is I was with my wife and we got tossed from our raft. I got tossed from our raft. I go floating down the river. I don't have a life jacket on. I don't have a helmet or anything. I was terrified. So I pointed my feet down the river because I remember somebody saying, your instinct is put your head first, but then you might smack your head on a rock. So I pointed my feet down first, and then my feet got wedged on a giant rock. And then I was like safe. Everybody was trying to toss me inner tubes and ropes and everything to save my life. And I realized that there were these hundreds of people all around because it was near the landing zone where people were getting out of the water. And I realized I was going to lose my bathing suit. And I was going to have to walk out of the water with a million people with cell phones all watching me. And I thought, you know what? I can't do that. So I just let go and I drifted down the river. Eventually I got to safety. Same thing happens in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the deep end, except for that Greg actually does lose his bathing suit, which is a lot funnier. So the family goes camping, and after a terrible night in the woods, they realize they might not be cut out for the great outdoors. So they think the solution is to go where other people are. And where do you go when you've got an RV and you want to be around other people? That's right, an RV park. The family goes to a crowded RV park that calls itself Camper's Paradise. This is actually the first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book with biblical themes. So the RV park is supposed to be paradise, like the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis. And I don't want to give too much away, but there's also a Noah's Ark storyline throughout the book. In the book asks a really big question: is life better with other people in it? I think we all miss being able to connect with other people in real life, but the Heffleys discover that when you put a lot of people in a crowded space, the results can be pretty messy. So in most of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, Greg has just one friend, Rowley Jefferson. So at the RV park, Greg's mom encourages him to branch out and meet other kids. So Greg meets a group of kids who are a cast of characters. They're a little bit wild. They all have nicknames. Let's see if I can remember some of them. One kid's name is Juicebox. One kid's name is Weevil, I think. I think he made it. One kid's name is Cutter. There's a kid named Regular Marcus, and there's a kid named Big Marcus. So those are some of the characters that you'll meet in this new book. So Greg's got a big group of friends for the first time ever, and we'll see how well that ends up. So I can see that some people don't want the book spoiled. I've probably said too much already. What I'm going to do in a few minutes is I'm going to show you around my studio. Like I said, I'm in the third floor of my own bookstore here in Plainville, Massachusetts. I've got this studio. This is where I do all of my work. Nobody's in it today, so I don't have to wear a mask, which is great. And I can kind of show you around without worrying about getting sick or getting anyone else sick. So before I give you a studio tour, I do see that there are some good questions and a lot of zooey mamas on the right-hand side. There's a lot of people watching. So I want some quality questions in the comments section. If you could take a breath, think of a question that you really actually want answered. I will do my best. Okay, so I see Hush Puppy 64 says, should I still religiously be reading these books in high school? Absolutely, yes. You might need to read them in the bathroom or someplace where nobody sees you, but I definitely think that, I actually wrote these books for adults to begin with. Back when I was growing up, there was really one section of the bookstore where you could get humor, and it was called the humor section. And they had all sorts of books there, Calvin and Hobbes collections, some stuff that was like more grown up. And I thought that this book that I was writing, I thought it would be 1,300 pages long, and it would sit in the humor section. So I never thought when I was writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid that I was actually writing for kids. And that was 8 years of writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So I'm really happy now when older people read the books or kids share them with their parents, because that's what I was going for. I wasn't going for kids. I was going for kind of everybody. All right, am I working on book 16 asks, let's see. Boy, the comments are going by so fast, I can't actually keep up. Am I working on book 16? Yes, for the first time ever, I actually have the idea for the next book now. And for the first time ever, I have the cover in mind for the next book. I don't want to say too much, but I will say it's a book about sports. I've been looking for for years of writing a book about sports because I think there's so much good stuff there, but I've never been able to crack it because I thought, man, if I put a ball on a cover, let's say it's a baseball, let's say it's a hockey puck or a basketball or whatever, I thought that's going to turn a lot of people off who aren't interested in that sport. And I really like to make Diary of a Wimpy Kid sort of very appeal to everyone. The other challenge is these books go out all over the world. And so if I put a baseball, an American baseball on the cover, it might be that somebody in, where there's no baseball won't be interested in reading the book. So I think I've cracked it. I don't want to say too much, but I am definitely planning on writing a book about sports. All right, Stanley, man, I see that you're studying animation and illustration at college, and you're curious what my process is for coming up with the jokes, and how do you get inspiration for the new characters? Great question. I have a really long answer to that. I'll try and make it short. I used to draw on my memory, things that happened to me in real life. And these days I use a process called systematic inventive thinking. And here's how it works. The first thing you do is you take a thing, like let's say these glasses here, and you list the big parts, right? So I'd say frames, lenses, right? And then you start to subtract and you see if you get something. Let's say I take away the lenses and I just have the frames. I say, who could use that? Who could use that as a product? Well, actually, NBA players use them. They use glasses with no lenses because they like to look fashionable and they like for there to be no reflection when somebody takes a picture of them. And so what I do is I go through this process with everything, an airplane or an elevator, whatever it might be. I do a lot of subtraction and I see if I come up with something, not a product I could use, but humor. Like what humor could you get out of glasses, frames with no lenses? Think about that. That's how I do it. All right, Annabella Frost. How long does it take to draw the covers? Because I'm an artist, and every time I draw Greg, it takes me like an hour. It takes me a long time too. I would say nowadays it takes me about an hour and a half to do a good cover. But it takes me sometimes on crowded scenes in the books, when there's crowd scenes, it could take 4 hours. In The Meltdown, there was a 2-page spread of a big snowball fight. That one took me 17 hours. So Zooey Mama, Jeff Kinney. Well, that's a way to say hello, Minty Fish 70. My grandma and I love reading your books, and we can't wait to read your new book. And you say, Zooey Mama's your new way of saying hello to me. That's good. Every sentence should begin and end with Zooey Mama. I'm so glad to hear that you read these books with your grandma, because like I said, I remember being in school, and if any teacher, or if I was in church, a priest or a minister said, when I was a kid, and they started off a story talking about what happened to them as a kid, I was already bought in. I wanted to hear what they had to say, because you can always get a sense of that person by hearing about their childhood stories. So I really like the idea that you and your grandma might have good discussions about what life's like for you and what life was like when you were, for her, when she was a kid. So did I base the books on part of my childhood? Ocean L. Yes, I did. A lot of my childhood, actually. I would say most of my childhood, in one way or another, made its way into the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. I think we all sort of own the copyright to our own life. And one of the things I really like to do these days is, when I am able to do school visits, I like to go into schools that don't get authors, maybe schools that, Title I schools that don't get authors as often. And I really like to encourage kids to start writing down things that happen to them, to tell their own stories, because not everybody gets to tell their story, but there's a huge appetite for reading about lives and perspectives that aren't the same as our own. Okay, Juan Chavez said, any more movies? Well, I can't announce anything yet, but I will say I'm getting into animation and Disney Plus. Hopefully we're going to get to announce something soon. I've been working on something for a number of years, and I can't give too many details, but I will say what we're working on is really, really fantastic. So Stephanie Smith says, my cousin read Roderick Rules when she was younger. That's good. I'm glad. Any favorite books out there? I'm curious if someone likes one book more than others. What inspired, Allison Catherine says, what inspired me to keep continuing the series after book 1? Well, like I said, my first draft was about 1,300 pages long, so I always expected to tell a lot of Greg's stories. I never thought this would be a series, actually. So that was kind of a surprise to me that my publisher wanted to make it into a series for kids. So I already had at least like 3 or 4 books worth, at least, online. And then the big question is, what made me decide to keep writing after I used up all my material? I think there's something about cartoon characters. We don't like them to age, and we don't like them to go away. I grew up on Calvin and Hobbes, and I was really sad when it ended, when Bill Watterson stopped drawing Calvin and Hobbes. Same with The Far Side, even though that wasn't really character-based. When it stopped, it kind of stung. Cartoons are a medium that we expect to stick around. Donald Duck, Uncle Scrooge, those characters, Mickey Mouse, those characters we expect to be there for us. And it's always sad when a creator stops writing or dies, actually. All right, I'm seeing lots of long haul tips. I see that Ritvik, I think it's how you pronounce it, is saying he's 9 years old. He's an author, and do I have any tips? You're going to get tired of hearing this tip from grown-ups, but the more that you read, the better you'll be. You cannot be a good writer unless you're a good reader. So a really easy thing to do is just to try to read as many books as you can in your genre, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then to start finding your own voice. All right, did I plan for the books to go as far as the movies? What was your reaction when you found out about a movie? It was crazy. I was, when Roderick Rules had just come out, that's when I started to get a lot of interest in a movie and turning Diary of Wimpy Kid into a movie. And I gotta be honest with you, it was like scary, because I didn't feel ready. It was so early in the process, and I also didn't know if I would have any control or what that process would be like. And the movie experience was very interesting. It was, I won some battles, I lost some battles. I think the movies were fun. The best thing that came out of the movies was that I developed these relationships, and I just saw Zachary Gordon's name go by in the comments. Zach, Robert, we're good friends to this day. We're almost like family because we were all going through the same thing at the same time. Is that those guys were getting their first feature film experience, and I was getting my first feature film experience, not in front of the camera, and it was really cool, and it really bonded us. So Toastmaster David Strickland said, can you please answer? But I didn't see your original question, so you're going to have to float it again. Boy, the comments are going so much. How many times do I read average each day? I am reading a lot lately because I'm a bookstore owner, and so these are just the past week. These are the books I've read, right? You see Lamar Giles' book, The Last Mirror, on the left. We have Kenny and the Beasts from Tony DiTerlizzi. We have The Babysitter's Club, newest graphic novel, and Babysitter's Little Sister. Front Desk by Jenny Yang, Class Act by Jerry Craft, and then 2 Princess in Black books. So those are just the ones that I've read in the past like 2 weeks. But truthfully, I really love to listen to books as well. So I've listened to all of them as well. Will there be any more Rowley Diary books? I am definitely right now thinking very hard about a new Rowley book. What I'm trying to do with each Rowley book is to make it feel really different than the last one. I want Rowley to always surprise you. And I think I have an idea of how to surprise you with the new Rowley book. It's going to be a different genre, different than what you're expecting from Rowley. Yes, is there going to be a second Awesome Friendly Adventure from CMW Roblox? I think there will be. I have to say, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I'm sorry, Rowley Jefferson's Awesome Friendly Adventure, book 1, was probably my favorite book. I wrote it really fast, but I really liked the book. And I was really sad because I put it out during a pandemic, so not as many people got to discover it. And I'm really hoping that over time, kids will get to discover it, because I think that's maybe the funniest Diary of a Wimpy Kid type book out there. So I see Michaeline Mason Gale. Am I a fan of Dogman? Yes, I am. And I'm actually good friends with Dave Pilkey. So Dave Pilkey is the creator of Dogman. Obviously, Dogman's the hottest thing right now in kids literature, maybe in all of books. And it's been really interesting. I struck up this friendship with him. I asked him to help me in kind of a relief effort for Oklahoma tornadoes a while ago. It must have been 6 years ago. And he said yes right away. And I did that with him and Stefan Pastis and Lincoln Purse. And we've become really close. And now the Pilkeys, they live in Japan and Seattle. So they keep going back and forth. But every so often they're in New York, and they've come to my bookstore 4 times, which is crazy because I live in New England, and they've made it up here. Really good man. His wife, Sayudi, is awesome. They're the most generous people I've ever met. And if you ever want to feel good about being a fan of someone, I would say start with Dave Pilkey and his wife, Sayudi. Will there ever be a Roderick version of the Diary of Wimpy Kid books, Laura Beal? I have been thinking a lot about that lately. And in fact, what's funny is I had never gotten that as a suggestion before. But lately, I've been getting it all the time. And I was already thinking about it, that it might really work, a Roderick book, a Roderick diary. So I'd love to see that happen. Am I a fan of Harry Potter? Yes, I will show you that I have a Harry Potter broom somewhere in this room. I think that those stories are great storytelling. And I see Toastmaster David Strickland says, did you ever want a part in the Diary movies? Yes. No, I don't know what the answer to this is. The truth is I am in 3 of the 4 of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. You have to look closely. But in the second and third ones, I am actually the father of Holly Hills. So I'm Peyton List's father. And then in the 4th one, let me think. Oh, I'm like a nerdy like convention guy. And the director really wanted to make fun of me. The director, David Bowers, he wanted to make fun of me. So he made me dress up in a bow tie and look totally nerdy. And I am the worst actor that you will ever meet. Tiara Ingram just said, "Ooh, I got an idea. You should make a Diary of Holly Hills." Well, that's interesting. I don't know if I could pull that off. I don't know if I could pull off an authentic story from Holly Hills, but maybe I could. That would be interesting hearing her perspective. Bo Yun said, "Have I ever read the Spiderwick Chronicles?" Yes, I have. Tony DiTerlizzi, whose book I mentioned a moment ago, is actually a really good friend as well. Do you display your handwritten copies in your house? I don't write them by hand, so no, I don't. I just do it all digitally, but I created a font that helps me to type. Why is the cover of the Long Haul orange? We go through just about every color. The only one I haven't done yet is pink, but I think that might be coming soon. H-Bomb says, "Hey, Jeff, I went to one of your Wrecking Ball shows soon." That's awesome. Hey, do you guys remember when we used to be able to gather in large crowds? Those were the days. I'm about to get on the road for Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the deep end, and I'm taking a van, and we're creating these outdoor experiences that are drive-through pool parties. That's the world we're in right now. We have to adapt to it, and we just have to roll with it for, I guess, a few more months or maybe a year. Will you try to put diverse characters in your books? Yes, I actually, believe it or not, when I'm drawing the characters in Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I'm just drawing the outlines of the characters. I don't have any coloring so you can't really tell what color their skin is. But I definitely have it in mind that certain characters are Asian, certain characters are African American, and you're going to get to see that when we get to animate the characters. You'll really get to see a diversity in the characters. That's a great question. Have I ever met Dusty Bowling? I think I have. I know that name. I know she's come through here through the bookstore. All right, we are going to see in a second here. I am going to take you around the studio, so I'm going to answer one more. Let's see. Have I ever seen a Studio Ghibli movie? I'm not sure. Have I read The Tale of Despereaux? I haven't, but I've met Kate DiCamillo several times. She's an awful lot of fun. And how did I get the idea for the cheese touch? I'll end on that question. I got the idea for the cheese touch because we had a piece of cheese underneath our basketball court in our church parking lot. And the kids who went to that school stayed away from the cheese until somebody made someone else eat it, which is the worst thing in the world. But now I get to turn that into the cheese touch story. It's that story mixed with the cooties, which kind of went around our school when I was growing up in Fort Washington, Maryland. So here's what I'm going to do now. I am going to answer a few more questions at the end, but you might want to hold them for a minute because I'm going to take you on a tour of my studio. It's going to be a little bit messy because I don't have a rear-facing camera. But let's start here. Here we go. This is a rack of, let's see. These are some of the Kids' Choice Awards that I won over the years, and I won 6 times. And so what's really funny is I thought I might win again. And so I built 8 cases, but guess what? I didn't win again. So you can see there's 2 empty cases. They actually canceled the best book category. So I don't have a chance to win again, but I think they replaced it with something like favorite butt kicker or something like that. So it was a fun run. All right, so Diary of Wimpy Kid Studio is very colorful, as you can see. We have some desks that are lit up like that one. Here's the green one over here. And here's the red one over here. Hopefully I don't have like my taxes out or something like that right now. Let's see. We have, if you look up above, you can see that the lights are actually striped and colorful. Those lights are meant to look like the covers of the first 5 or 6 Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. So I know it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see that here is an aqua colored one, right? Okay, it's a little, there we go. The light is looking good now. Over there, that green ring, that kind of, which is floating above my head right now, that's actually the ring of the desk where I work. So you can see I've got a ring light, but I also have this tablet. This computer is where I do a lot of my drawings. The first 10 Diary of Wimpy Kid books were done on this tablet, which tilts. You asked about the cheese touch. Here we go. We have a giant cheese wall. And usually this thing works and you can see fish swimming by and all of that, but it's a big wall. You can see it's, let's see, taller than me. So it's about 6'3", I guess. All right, over here we have some movie stuff. If you saw Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul, you saw that the pig went to the Little Critters Petting Zoo. And that is the sign from it. It's hanging there. It looks like it's made out of iron, but it's actually made out of plastic. It's so interesting how they do things in the movies. Here's an outdoor sign that we use for the Corny's restaurant. It's the very first shot in the movie, and that sign lights up. Down here is some of the classic stuff. If you see that bowl right there, that's what Roderick actually holds in the movie Dog Days. And here is some cheese from the musical. Now, I did tell you I have a Harry Potter broom. I actually have about 5 or 6 of them in the studio. And you can see downtown Plainville, Massachusetts right now where I live. I talked about cartoon characters which kind of live forever. So this is a really cool thing that I have here in the studio. My favorite cartoonist was Carl Barks. He created a character called Uncle Scrooge, Scrooge McDuck. And here he is sitting on a pile of money. The reason I bought this was because he is holding up a coin and telling his nephews, who you can't see, his how he got his first dollar. He's telling the unlikely story of how he got his first coin. And when I was growing up, this bookstore is called An Unlikely Story. So he's telling an unlikely story, and the bookstore is called An Unlikely Story. And here is a telephone booth, which is made to look like it's from the UK. This is a comfortable chair where I sit when I need to think and work. And I'm going to take you around the outside of the studio here. Let's see, and you'll be able to look above, right? This is Greg Heffley floating as a helium balloon almost. These are replicas of the helium balloons from the Macy's Day Parade. And you can see here, we have these giant wall prints that show you what the Greg balloon looks like. So this year, there's not going to be a parade in the conventional sense. The Macy's Day Parade will happen, but they're going to be flying the balloons on this one block, one city block attached to cars. All right, so we have all of the different languages. So Wimpy Kid is published in 65 different languages. I think that the latest is actually Somalian. And what's really cool about that is that they're not published in Somalia, they're published in Sweden, where a lot of Somalian refugees landed. And the parents really want to preserve their language for their kids. So they've actually published the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books in Somalian to help preserve the language. That's happened in other parts of the world. There's a place, I'm not sure if it's, well, the language is called Frisian, and it's way up north. I think it's north in Finland, near the North Pole. And they want to, gosh, I think I'm getting things a little bit wrong. There's Frisian, and there's a language called Sami. And Sami is the one that is being used to preserve the language. Now, you can see everything on this floor. There are these cloud lights, and they're changing color as we go. And this one's turning from purple to blue, I think. And I wanted to theme this up here tonight for the deep end, so it's a nautical theme. And I have up here these airplane fuselages. So this is where we meet and where we eat. And you can see that it's nighttime outside right now through the airplane windows, but we can make it daytime too by sliding the slider, and now it's daytime. So everything here is airplane themed and up themed. So we're gonna look over here. There's, of course, a loaded diaper van flying into the wall. And we have also a loaded diaper drum set that's hanging upside down. It's a little messy up here right now. We have the getaway airplane flying here, and then a little bit of a messy game show cabinet kind of system up there. So sometimes we'll do game shows, we'll do trivia contests and things like that. But it's a really fun place to work. And when we're open again, fully open, then it's a really fun place for kids to come visit. They can sit at my desk, and maybe I'll be here and I can meet you in person. So we're going to take about 7 more minutes to answer your questions. So fire away. I really like the really thoughtful questions. So if you have anything, fire away. I know I missed a ton when I was walking around. Let's see here. Is Rowley based off of one of my friends, Juan Chavez? Sort of. I would say he's more based on my friend Ship. So I had a friendship with a kid named Ryan, and we did everything together, just like Rowley and Greg. Ryan was cooler than Rowley and more athletic than Rowley, so he's not really based on him, but Greg is based on me. Do I like the Greg series or the Rowley series more, Rick? I really actually, the Wimpy Kid books, the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, are a lot harder to write. They're very technical, and they're sort of heavy, if you will. And the Rowley books are really fun because he's not the smartest kid, and he's very childlike. So it's easier to write in that style. It's easier to draw in that style also. So Michelle Schaffner, my community must love to have you there. Do you talk to schools in a typical year? A lot? Sometimes. I'm a dad. I really only get to see kids in schools when we're on tour. And like I said, we try to go to Title I schools mostly. Somebody asked, Road to Fun, when did I start wearing glasses? Yeah, unfortunately, that comes with middle age. You'll find it out for yourself. But I'm trying to look as stylish as I can. I wish I didn't have to wear glasses, but I really do. Do I like Percy Jackson? Yes, I do. I haven't read them all, Brian Dwyer, but my son Will, those were his favorite books. And he would say, Dad, no offense, but these are the best books. My name's Birdie, Stanley says. How do you come up with your art style and what makes a good comic strip character? I really try to draw as simply as possible. I like to use as few lines as possible because I think that a good cartoonist is impactful with just using a few lines. Annabelle Frost, once again, wants me to pronounce Rowley. I would say Rowley, not Rowley. Rowley is a town in Massachusetts. So that's where I got the name for Rowley. And then I moved to Plainville, Massachusetts, and my next door neighbors ended up being the Rowleys. No idea how. Who is Albert Sandy based off of? Nobody really, but I took the name from a kid growing up, but he's not actually based on anybody. But I really like Albert Sandy because in the books, he always is telling kids something at the lunch table. It's always some kind of lie or an exaggeration. And I'll give you an example. Like when I was growing up, somebody told me if I dug a hole that was 1 inch deep, jumped in and out of it, and then the next day made it 2 inches deep, jumped in and out of it, the next day 4, the next day 8, they're like, by day 10, you'll be able to jump like 10 feet, 10 feet high. And I must have been 14, 15 years old when I heard that. And I totally believed it. And I wasn't ambitious enough to try it because that would have required me to dig a hole. But I put that into my books, so Albert Sandy is always coming up with things like that where the other kids believe him. How big is my studio? I think it's like 3,000 square feet, this floor. How do I feel about going on a socially distanced tour again, Raven Villanueva? I feel good about it, actually. I think that obviously a lot of our experiences right now are through the screen, which is good, for an event like this. But I'm sure everybody's had a lot of it, especially kids going to school. And so I'm really glad to be doing something that's physical. And, kids have faced a lot of disappointments this year. 2020 is going to be a year we never forget. And so many things have gotten canceled, sports and all these things that we love, even the movies that we love to go see. And I just want to have something that's not canceled. I just want to have something where you can show up and we're going to be there. So I'm really hoping that we can stay safe and the numbers of COVID cases stay low enough that we can do this. But it's a drive-through event, so I think we'll be able to do that. How many Wimpy Kid books do I plan to make, Thomas1651? At least 20, because that just feels like a really good number. We'll see if I can get there. What would I be doing if I wasn't a writer-illustrator? I actually created the website called Poptropica, and I think I would actually still be doing that. JHLE Claire says, why does Manny look like an alligator? He sure does. But he only really looks like an alligator when you make him bigger. Then he starts to look a little bit ridiculous. I saw an interesting one. Do I think you will put Ben Weiler and Greg's? Oh man, it went up the screen so fast. Hold on. Weiler, Greg's BFF from the online books into a later book. Oh, that's a great question. You asked about the online. I started this series off online. I like the idea that Greg had an old friend, that Greg's got like a little bit of history to him. And I think, I don't know if he'll make an appearance. It might be a little bit too late. Do I plan on bringing the pigs back, Krish? Believe it or not, he's been in both of the books ever since he disappeared. So you have to look very carefully for him in Wrecking Ball, and you'll see him very clearly in the new book. So we have about 1 more minute. Bees0884 asks me, do I enjoy making the books? I'm going to tell you the truth. It's really hard, and it's not that fun, because when I'm writing the books, it's usually a summertime. I want to be hanging out with my friends, my kids, and I can't always do that. And by the end, I'm drawing like 16 hours a day, so that's not so fun. My favorite cereal, this is the second time I answered this today, once in a different forum. I'd say that would be the Oops Crunch Berry All Berries. How do I draw Greg? I'm wondering a lot. We have YouTube videos. You can look them up, and you'll do better to look there than for me to draw right now. Will I visit Ireland again, asks John. Yes, absolutely. I was so surprised when I went to Ireland and got such a good response, so I cannot wait to come back. So I'm going to answer one more question. Who's my mentor? I'm going to say that my cartooning mentor is Lincoln Purse, who did the Big Nate comics, because when I was about 17, 18, 19 years old, I wrote to Lincoln Purse, and I showed him my comics, and I asked for advice. He was so nice. He wrote back. We developed a friendship, and that friendship has been enduring to this day. So I'm so glad that he helped me and that he mentored me. And if you're watching, Lincoln, I just want to say thank you. So tons of questions, more than I could ask. And I'm so sorry for the questions that I didn't get to. Make sure, please, that you pre-order the book from Barnes & Noble. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, get your copy of The Deep End at bn.com. And of course, you can go to stores. So many Barnes & Nobles are open across the country. Just wear a mask, and you can get the book on Tuesday. I certainly hope you will. I hope it gives you lots of laughs during this really crazy year. I think we're at least halfway through this crazy time with COVID-19. Have faith and look forward to the future, because it's going to be a lot of fun when we can all get back together. So thank you so much. Thanks again, Barnes & Noble, for hosting me. Thanks to everyone who came out today and watched this. And I hope to get to meet